You're listening to Cattails, the podcast of SLC Faculty Local 417, your union connection. Each episode, we bring you real stories from our members, practical tips on your rights, and the kind of information that helps us all move forward.
Welcome to the holiday episode of Cattails. I'm your host, Julie White. We've got a great lineup for you today, including a discussion with our faculty resident expert on how to celebrate the winter holidays without leaving anyone out. And of course, we do need to recognize the Seinfeld popularized Festivus for the rest of us. And just in time for that season, lead steward Gillian Axten will air our grievances. We'll step back and reflect on the career of Dan Summers, who's just made his final motion to adjourn, retiring from his role as a steward and from SLC. And we'll also chat a bit about Ontario's Bill 33. I've got to admit, though, 2025 was a really tough year, and 2026 isn't going to get much easier. But we can all look forward to a bit of magic this holiday season. Let's check in with the local 417 stewards to see what their wishes are this holiday.
This year, I'm asking Santa to bring us everything that we need to be healthy and happy and strong in the new year.
I want Santa to bring free memberships to the gymnasium at all 3 campuses so that we all be healthy and strong.
Since I'm leaving the college, I hope that Santa brings all my soon-to-be former colleagues a better work environment with better timetables and a place that we can all be proud of.
My Christmas wish for the college and for myself is more security for the colleges so that they don't have to worry about programming and students and funding, and more security for myself and my colleagues that we don't have to worry about future employment.
For this year, for Christmas, I want more contracts, more programs, and more recognition for our part-time faculty.
This year for Christmas, I would like us to start living our values again.
This year for Christmas, I'd like workloads that reflect the efforts that faculty put into their job.
All I want for the holidays is for Nolan Quinn to understand that without St. Lawrence College Cornwall campus, he wouldn't have a career.
I'm hoping for everyone at the college, students, staff, teachers alike, for a good rest and get those batteries recharged and peaking curiosity and energy for a new semester starting in January.
What I would like for the college to get for Christmas is for all my colleagues and friends to get a well-deserved break where they get some downtime with their family and friends and come back feeling rejuvenated and, happy holidays.
We were even able to get OPSEU President JP Hornick to wade in with her holiday wishes.
My holiday wish, because we're finally wall-to-wall union in all of the colleges, we've got full-time, part-time, support, academic all together, is to organize together to coordinated bargaining so that we can make the big wins we need for our students, each other, and our communities, and save our colleges.
So the holidays bring out the tinsel, the carols, and the debates. So is it Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, or something else entirely? In a workplace that shuts down for 2 weeks in December, finding joy without leaving anyone out can be tricky. That's why we've invited Ekta Singh to unwrap this festive challenge with us. In addition to being a highly respected member of our full-time faculty, Ekta's an expert in equity, diversity, indigenization, inclusion, and accessibility. She's a master trainer in intercultural competency. She led the development of SLC's first Belonging and EDI's strategic framework in 2020-2021. Welcome to the podcast, Ekta.
Well, thank you so much, Julie. It's so nice to be here this morning and to be chatting with you.
We're fortunate to have you with us and to have your experiences here as well. So here's the big question. How can we celebrate without leaving anyone out?
All right. Well, that is the question of this time, isn't it? So I think to begin, I think it's an interesting point to first recognize that when we look at the month of December across our education sector, December shuts down Ontario colleges, centers the Christian holidays, right, as the default, even when our workforce and student body are all religiously and culturally diverse. And I think that kind of, leads into your question of, is it okay? Like, what greeting should I use? Can we still say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. But I would invite us to actually think about the more systemic structural pieces to that in terms of thinking about whose time, whose tradition, whose needs, whose backgrounds are being structurally recognized and whose might be omitted, whose might be treated as an exception or as an accommodation. So when we think about, how do we center and who do we center during the time of December, for example, when we go on holiday break, it's interesting to note that not all holidays are built into our academic calendar, and others have to ask for time off and reschedule exams or quietly miss out, which can really contribute to a lack of belonging. So I think when we ask ourselves this question of, what is appropriate to say during this time, let's kind of ask ourselves who's in the room, who can we ask, what are the types of questions we can ask, and how can we ensure that, yes, even though we're going to have this 3 to 4 week vacation and sort of holiday, it might not be a holiday, quote unquote, for everybody. And, what can we do to recognize that everybody is going to be celebrating differently.
So it's probably better for us to refer to it as the winter break than the Christmas shutdown.
I think so. I think so. Yeah, I think it just invites inclusion, and it invites the recognition that not everybody is going to be celebrating Christmas, and also recognizing that there are many other significant cultural observances that happen that also do not receive a shutdown of the college or a break, but are also important in that regard.
How do we start to figure out who celebrates what?
Yeah. I think for, one of the great things that we've started to do, I think, at the college is kind of moving from that sort of Christmas party mindset to a broader days of significance approach. And I know that we have a multi-faith calendar at the college. I know that every Thursday when we have our communication that comes out, there is kind of a notice at the bottom that highlights significant days of celebration and observance from various groups that are represented at the college and in the Kingston, Brockville, Cornwall community. But I think, again, it would be helpful to perhaps it's not just a holiday lunch that we have in December, but maybe it's a spring lunch that we have or a fall lunch, and just thinking about the ways in which we celebrate, perhaps being more intentional with finding opportunities to celebrate with our colleagues that come from different cultural backgrounds, not just in a particular month. For example, with, December being known as a celebratory month for people that come from the Christian faith, but also Hanukkah is, represented during this time, Kwanzaa, winter solstice. So I think even just creating intentional moments to celebrate, around the year, as an example.
Are there other things that you would like to see perhaps happening?
I think it would be great that even when we are planning for some of these cultural celebrations or so let's holiday lunches, it would be so wonderful in the month of December, for example, to have a multi-faith group or like a multi-faith committee that is made up of faculty or staff that come from different cultural and faith-based backgrounds that would kind of be in charge of coming up with some really great events, socials, lunches that could include various perspectives and sharing, just again, looking at the representation of the college and in terms of faculty. We do have a really diverse faculty group, and again, thinking about ways to invite folks to spearhead something.
As member of OPSEU, you attended the OPSEU convention last spring, and
Yes.
I know you were impressed by some of the things that you were seeing there. Do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Sure. So the OPSEU convention was an incredible experience for me. And I think what was really exciting was learning more about the various equity groups and committees that, that OPSEU advocates for various marginalized groups. And there were a few that I had, an opportunity to connect with and meet. There's an Indigenous Circle, a Rainbow Alliance, the Coalition of Racialized Workers. There's a Provincial Women's Committee, a Provincial Young Workers Committee, a Disability Rights Caucus, and a Provincial Francophone committee. And I had an opportunity to speak with some members from the Coalition of Racialized Workers. And it was just really exciting to hear and see the work that they're doing to ensure that diverse voices are heard. They're doing work within their various locals to address discrimination, build a lot of anti-racism work and training, and just create more awareness about how we as a group can be more intentional with ensuring that we have diverse voices and groups represented, and that we're all making efforts to reduce barriers.
So the next couple of weeks are largely a celebrate if you're celebrating, rest up if you're not. Is that kind of the way you look at it?
Yeah. I think for me, I always begin with, if I know the people in the room and I know that people have been forthcoming with sharing, they do celebrate Christmas, they are going to visit family, I'm very open and encouraging to say Merry Christmas and have a wonderful holiday. But if I'm entering a room where I don't know everybody and I don't know the backgrounds, I'll probably be a bit more cautious and ask questions. What are you doing for the holiday? What types of celebrations do you observe? And it just creates an opportunity where I'm not assuming that everybody in the room is celebrating in the same way that I am. So I think it's a great rule of thumb if ask questions and show curiosity, be interested. And I know, speaking from the healthcare administration program, where we have all international students, especially that come from all over the world, I do try to take special interest in looking at the backgrounds of my students and then going to look at their countries of origin, looking at what celebrations, what observances would be happening that month. And then we talk about them in class. And I think too, students are great, they're a great group that can be teachers to us and to kind of educate us as professors to share, here's something that we do as a family. Here's something that I'm missing from home that I'd love us to learn about. And then suddenly your class, maybe for 5-10 minutes, is turning into a great cultural learning experience. Then that could be translated into kind of a ripple effect across the college.
And that's one of those things that's always exciting. And I remember one time I got a message from a student, I think it was at Thanksgiving, and they were wondering because they wanted to cook a turkey, but they were stuffing it with vegetables. And it's like, how long do I cook this turkey? I had no idea.
Yeah.
But it was so neat because we were able to have a conversation around, so how would you adapt this?
Yeah.
And celebrate, just different ways of celebrating, which was really interesting.
Yeah, I think that's it. Exactly. Is just kind of creating that space where everybody can share and foster that sense of belonging. And I think it really begins with asking questions and creating that intentional time.
Okay. And do you celebrate Festivus for the rest of us, Ekta?
So I have my partner is a huge Seinfeld fan and has celebrated Festivus. We actually have a family friend that has had a Festivus party for the last 10 years in town, and we've been invited. We can't go this year, but definitely have been on invited and sharing our grievances, and it's a lot of fun and it's really funny. Julie, I think we could start a new tradition for the local.
Well, I think we're about to. Well, thank you so much, Ekta. And what do you celebrate this time of year?
We do celebrate Christmas. I grew up celebrating Christmas in my Punjabi household in Edmonton and Ottawa, and that has been passed down now to our kids. They love Christmas. They love the presents and family, and so we will be having our own little Christmas celebration, and along with all of the other Sikh, Punjabi traditions we celebrate throughout the rest of the year.
Excellent.
How about you?
I celebrate Christmas. We celebrate the spirit of the season and just having people get together and enjoy one another's company. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
All right.
Great.
Well, you have a Merry Christmas, Ekta.
Thank you so much, Julie. You have a Merry Christmas too. Thank you.
As December 23rd approaches, many of us will be streaming some favorite seasonal Seinfeld episodes, digging out the Festivus pole, and getting ready for those feats of strength.
The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people.
And who better to air our grievances than Local 417 lead steward Gillian Axten? Happy Festivus, Gillian. What grievances do you have to share with us from Ontario's colleges, and specifically from right here at SLC?
All right, so I'm going to start big and I'll move to small because that's the way my brain works. So the province we have seen overwhelming, a huge amount of grievances, grieving the lack of and or the power of the CESC. So what is the CESC? The College Employment Stability Committee. So 24 colleges, probably at least 12 have not had meetings or were reluctant to have meetings. And when they were having meetings, it was thou shalt from management and not a collaborative process. So the number of grievances and now arbitrations are huge. So we saw that from the beginning of 2025 until recently.
So we're lucky here at
Yes.
St. Lawrence.
Oh, yes, we are.
Okay.
Absolutely. Now we're seeing the layoff grievances. And we can usually schedule for arbitration purposes theoretically about 30 over a 2-month period. And it's not a lot of dates, but it is the 30 dates that we get. Sometimes it's 40. And last month and the month before, we used 90% of those on layoffs. And we still didn't schedule all the layoffs. So in our process, layoffs, dismissals are number one in what gets scheduled to arbitration. Accommodations and human rights complaints are sort of number two. And then any grievance that a particular college wants to move forward is number three. And so we schedule them in that order. And that was the bulk of those grievances were all about layoffs and dismissals.
So typically, what would the percentage of layoffs and dismissals look like in a year, unlike kind of the situation we've had?
We would probably get 5 or 6 in any 2-month period.
Okay.
We'd get more in September because they would happen, June, July, August by the time they got to us. But oftentimes 3 and 4. We are looking at, 30,000 members plus in CAAT A. And then CAAT F is, that amount doubled. So we're a large group, but now we're seeing, 28 and 30 a month. So that's the biggest thing. So the reason why people are grieving their dismissal and or their layoff is that the process was not followed within the collective agreement. And so there is a very specific process of how and why you lay off, and other colleges are not following that process. We've been reasonably lucky here. We have yet to have any grievances about CSC or any grievances about layoffs because the process is being followed by our college.
And that, again, is part of that relationship perspective, right?
Absolutely. So that's from the provincial level, that's what we're seeing. From the local level, we are seeing 2 things. We had the highlight of my year will be the outcry that we saw for people not wanting to have their PD time used for the training over reading week. And when we made the call out for, do you want to sign on a group grievance? I had about 10 or 12, and then they started trickling in, and then they started flooding in. So we had nearly 30 people sign on to that group grievance, and the group grievance didn't even get heard because once management saw that we stood up as a collective, they caved. And that to me was the power of solidarity, the power that we have as a union, that if we stand, management will cave fast. We just need to stand in solidarity together. We are much more powerful than they are. And unlike the delusion that they had that they can run the college without support staff, there is no delusion that they can run the college without us. And I say it was delusion because they really learned quickly through that strike that we can't run the college without our sisters and brothers and support staff. But they do have that delusion that somehow they can. There is no delusion that they can do it without us. And if we stand up together, they will cave. So that to me, highlight of my year, absolutely highlight of my year.
The grievance that wasn't.
The grievance that wasn't, exactly. The other grievances that we've seen are a lot more about investigations. For some godforsaken reason, our college has decided that they don't want to manage people. They want to investigate people instead of just having conversations. And I don't think that's our individual managers that are the issue. There's something systemically wrong that managers are not allowed to manage or are afraid to manage, or I'm not sure where the problem is, but there's an issue there. And so these investigations become really hard, really complicated, really messy, really dirty. And that's where we're getting grievances.
And these have got to be really expensive, too.
Incredibly expensive. So just so you understand, each arbitration day is $5,000. That's just for the arbitrator. We each have to hire counsel. Luckily, our local doesn't pay for our counsel, nor do we pay the arbitration days. Thankfully, OPSEU does. But St. Lawrence College management side has to pay their counsel, and they have to pay their half of the arbitration day. So it's incredibly, incredibly expensive every time we have grievances and every time legal counsel is involved. For them, less so for us. So one of the weird things is until we go to arbitration, I act as legal counsel for any member and or the collective. So I'm cheap. You're already paying my salary. So the college really has this weird position where they pay for the actual grievance, which they could have avoided. So they're paying both sides of it. Very weird system. So those are the big things. The stuff that I see that's going to come out will be faculty taking vacation when they haven't been approved, faculty not attending mandatory meetings. There's a lot of recently about control. Colleges decided that they want to control us or try to control us, and they can do that. They have the right within the collective agreement up to a point. The downside of controlling a bunch of professional faculty members is the more we are controlled, the less creative we are, the less flexible we are, the less independent we are, and that becomes then a detriment to our students and to our pedagogy or andragogy, and the whole system falls apart. So there's a balance that we need to strike where faculty need to do their work, but management needs to give us space and time to do that work. And I don't know where that balance is going to wind up, but we're no longer balanced.
Okay. So that'll be what we talk about next year.
Yep.
All right. Culture seems to be one of those major issues that we hear about from members across St. Lawrence.
And not to quote Glenn, but I will. He will say over and over again, culture eats strategy for lunch. And unfortunately, they're starting to build a culture that is going to eat any strategy of positivity and growth very fast. And that's something I've been sort of, standing on treetops, yelling at management about. So is Christina DeCarey, and I don't know if it's being heard.
All right. And again, that's one of the reasons why we've started this podcast, is to try to do what we can as members just to help build some collegiality and support a more positive culture from the collective itself.
Well, if anything, that grievance that never was stood up huge as a flag of how much solidarity and what we can do as a faculty together.
All right. Well, happy Festivus to you, Gillian. I know you will be amazing with the feats of strength.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Today's Get to Know Your LEC guest knows when it's time to call it a day, literally. A former police officer turned dedicated teacher, he's become legendary for spotting that exact moment that a meeting needs that motion to adjourn. As he prepares for his well-earned retirement at the end of the month, he's here for one last swan song. And don't worry, we won't make him sing. Instead, he'll share the highlights of his second career in the classroom and inspire the next generation of union stewards to step forward. Please welcome Dan Summers. All right, so are you ready for the rapid fire session, Dan?
I am ready. Fire away.
First question, what word do you hate hearing?
Ooh, there's quite a few. I'm not a big fan of pedagogy. If I hear the term pedagogy one more time, I'm going to scream. I also read a book by Jerry D., and it said, teaching, it's harder than it looks. And he agreed with me. He said pedagogy is one of his least favorite words. So that would be my least favorite word that I hear often at the college.
That's a good one. All right. If you had to give up either your phone or coffee for a month, which one would it be?
I could do either or. I would say coffee. Okay. I don't need coffee. I like coffee, but I don't need coffee.
Have you ever planned a prank days in advance and pulled it off?
Constantly.
Is there a highlight one that sticks out in your mind that you want to share?
Usually around April Fool's Day. If I have the students on that day, I'll walk in with a bunch of blank papers and say, okay, we ready for the exam? And you can just see the look of pure horror on their face until I say April Fools. And they're not really prepared for it. So I've used that one quite a few times.
All right. What superpower do you wish you could have for just one day?
Ooh, superpower. Well, I'm a big Spider-Man fan, so I guess I'd like to be able to fly around like Spider-Man.
All right.
And my daughter is a huge Spider-Man fan as well, so we often exchange gifts involving Spider-Man.
Okay. What's your favorite holiday?
My favorite holiday would definitely be Christmas. I like getting together with people, Christmas cheer. The only thing I don't like about it is the snacks and the cookies and the weight gain. So, but other than that, I'm a big fan of Christmas.
I love the snacks, but I don't like the weight gain. What about you surprises people when they get to know you?
I've been a vegetarian for 12 years, not often shocks people. When people find out I was a cop for 25 years, they go, "You were a cop?" Like, I get that a lot, which I take as a compliment, by the way. When people are surprised that I was a police officer, I always take it as a compliment. So there's two.
What one song always lifts your mood?
Oh, my favorite song of all time is Maggie May by Rod Stewart. So I play it constantly. And I am a big music fan, but I can't sing. I've tried to play guitar 100 times, but I always shock my wife. Every time a song comes on, I can sing it from beginning to end, off key, at a tune, but I can say I know all the words. So I'm a huge music fan.
Do you do karaoke?
Not well, but I have.
Awesome. I love the fact that you've got the courage to try.
The last time I did it, it was at our curling club, and the song we did was the Proclaimers' I'm Gonna Walk 500 Miles. And me, out of tune, had everybody up pounding their fists going, I would walk 500 miles, and I would walk.
That wasn't bad.
Yeah. Oh,
I think you don't give yourself enough credit.
Like I always said, I was the student in class who'd get the tap on the shoulder and say, just mouth the words, darling.
If you could instantly learn a language, which one would it be?
Oh, that is a great question, because right before I logged on here, I am doing Duolingo. And right now I have two profiles. One, I'm trying to learn French, and one I'm trying to learn Spanish. And also in the mix, I have Italian and Portuguese. So, io sono Dan. I am Dan.
Is this preparing for travel, or is this just for fun?
I started doing French because we have a little granddaughter who lives in French Guiana right now. They just moved there from Paris. So I want to be able to speak to her in French. And Spanish, I'm trying to keep my brain going in retirement. So, yeah, so I'm kind of learning 4 languages. I tried Greek. I gave it up after a day.
That one's tough.
The alphabet's not even the same.
Yeah. It's like hieroglyphics. All right. If you could teleport anywhere right now, where would it be?
Ooh, where would I go right now? You know what? I have been to Europe probably 10 times. My roots are in the UK. My grandmother was right from Scotland. I have never been to the UK or Ireland. I think I would go to Scotland.
All right. Would you rather have regrets about actions or inactions?
Inactions. Yeah, I generally, I don't tend to have regrets. If I think I'm going to regret something, I try not to do it. So.
All right. And that brings us to an end of your rapid fire. You survived that.
Ooh, that was very nerve-wracking.
It's just the way that we start to kind of get you to sweat a little bit about the questions, because now we're going to bring out that spotlight, and you know a little bit about interrogation, right?
Oh, yeah. Got a spotlight over my head right now.
All right. So
we don't call them interrogations anymore. They are suspect interviews.
Suspect interview. Okay. And the interviews I do are suspect. So, how did you go from being a police officer into teaching?
Well, it was 2010. It was right after the May long weekend in 2010. I was working at the G20 summit in Toronto, living in Kingston, but spending my week up in Toronto. And my wife showed me an advertisement for a job at police foundations in Brockville and said, "You should apply for this." And I went, "Oh, yes, I am." And I spent, so I had lots of free time in the evening. I applied for it. I studied like there was no tomorrow, was lucky enough to get an interview, and very fortunate enough to get the job. So I retired with 24 years in the RCMP and moved directly into St. Lawrence College.
All right. And in terms of being in the RCMP, here in Ontario, the RCMP plays a bit of a different role than it does in other
Yes.
parts of the country. What sorts of things did you do while you were with the RCMP?
Well, I started at Toronto Airport. When I got hired, it was in the late 80s, and it was right after the Air India tragedy. So they were really, I was originally from Ottawa. When I applied to the Mounties, I was living in Calgary. So I got the opportunity to move from back to Ontario. So I jumped at it. So I was at Toronto Airport. I was there for 6 years. And there our job was basically, security. Yeah, it was fun. I still have my best friends from the RCMP are still my friends I met at the Toronto Airport. And we still get together regularly and we still have a great time. And then I got the opportunity to come to Kingston. And that was when the cigarette and alcohol smuggling was at its peak. So I did that for about 2-3 years. Then I kind of merged into doing financial crimes, which isn't really riveting, but we had a very good time doing it. We did mostly proceeds of crime from drug dealing and drug trafficking. So it was a nice segue.
So you had a lot of experience to bring forward to a police foundation program.
I'd like to think so, yeah. One of the things that when you do the job that I was doing for the majority of my career is you write a lot of legal papers, you go to court a lot. So you sort of know the process and then the system very well. So I think that gave me a real leg up because actually for my micro teach for the job, we had to write a mock search warrant. So I go, "Oh, this is easy." Banged it out in 15 minutes. and it's funny because I have a friend of mine and he's in the military. And him and I are always talking and we curl together. And he lives now in Halifax, but we still get together and we do mixed bond spiels with our wives. And we met at the Hunt Club Curling Club and Golf and Country Club. It's very posh, very rich, lots of engineers, lawyers, doctors. And Stu and I always say, these guys make a lot more money than us, but they have no good stories. So we have lots of good stories, lots of good experiences. I've traveled a lot with the RCMP. I met a lot of famous people. I've, just all kinds of opportunities that most people don't get.
And do you still have the scarlets?
I have about half of it. Yes.
Okay.
I lost part of it in a move, so therefore I can't always wear it. So I can't wear it. So I do have permission to wear it, though. You have to get permission after you retire to wear it, and I do have that permission.
Oh,
I used to
nice.
always wear it to graduation.
That's neat. That's really neat. So talk to me a little bit about your transition into teaching and kind of your role with the college. How did that go?
Well, I was incredibly fortunate. I had never taught at the college before. I had no real teaching experience. When I had my interview, they said, "Do you have any teaching experience?" And I really stretched. I said, "Well, I used to teach first aid and CPR to the people on my shift, so I guess that counts." So the first year that I was at the college, I was actually on unpaid leave from the RCMP just to make sure I liked the college and more importantly, they liked me. And after about a month in, I said, I should have just retired and not worried about going back because I absolutely loved it. It's funny because people would say, "Do you like your job?" I said, "No." They said, "You don't?" I said, "No, I love it." The students really make the job. They make it a lot of fun. People say, "Well, what if you get a student that is difficult?" I go, I have them for 2 years. I could do that standing on my head, and then they're out the door. So, by and large, most of the kids are great. I have a lot of fun. I think they have a good time in my class. I think they learn a lot. I've had quite a few students go through, the Ontario Police College. I've had 2 finish at the top of the class. So I think I'm doing something right.
And do you stay in touch with some of them? Or they stay in touch with you?
Yeah, every so often I get an email out of the blue. I got an email just this past week, and I go, "Who's that? Jared, who is this Jared kid?" And I knew him. I just couldn't place him. So I called up one of our other instructors, and I said, "Who is this Jared?" And he goes, and I said, how did I forget? So, yes.
Have you ever been, pulled over by one of your former students who kind of looks at you and goes, "Hey, Dan"?
Never. Which reminds me of a funny story because I rarely I've been pulled over like twice in my life since I've been a cop. And people say, "What do you mean you've never been pulled over?" I said, "Well, I don't speed. I follow the rules of the road. I've just, I don't think I've been pulled over since I started at the college. So I haven't been pulled over by the police in over 15 years. So
I was pulled over once, and it was by a police officer who was actually my basketball coach. I was still in high school at the time, and he pulled me over just because he saw it was me. And he thought it would be funny. That was the worst. I was terrified.
Oh, I had the opposite happen to me. A buddy of mine pulled me over, and he was with the Kingston police. And as he walked up to my car, I drove ahead. So I said,
That's awesome.
It was basically, "Don't mess with me."
So in terms of kind of highlights of your teaching career, are there any that really stand out in your mind?
Oh, boy. Every year is different. I think that's what shocked me the most. I did law and security administration, which was sort of the predecessor to police foundations. And I sort of thought every class would sort of be the same. The thing that shocked me the most was how different every class is. And, just how good the students are and how much fun they are and all their different personalities. And every year I have fond memories.
So you made a big decision to retire.
I made the decision after driving from Kemptville to Cornwall after 2 weeks. I said, I can't do this for the whole year. So I just made the decision. I've had a good run, and I've really enjoyed my time at St. Lawrence. Cornwall campus is unbelievable. Like, it's beautiful. I have this fantastic view from my office out over the St. Lawrence River. The students are great, but I know it's my time to leave. So.
Okay. And you work in Brockville most of your teaching career then?
For 15 years, yes.
You want to talk about the people in Brockville and the campus feel there?
I also realized that I am a Brockville guy. Like, I really like my time there. My best friends from St. Lawrence are still in Brockville. This is not a slam against the Cornwall crew, but I worked with the Brockville crew for a very long time. I still keep in touch with a lot of them.
You have been an incredible advocate for your colleagues, for faculty across St. Lawrence College. Can you talk a little bit about why you decided to get involved in the union?
Well, I always called myself the reluctant steward. Our former president, Graham Aubert, needed stewards on Brockville, and he kept asking me, and I kept saying, "No, I'm not interested. I just want to come do my thing and go home." He invited me. He goes, "We have an opening to go to convention." So I went to convention in Toronto, which is a lot of fun. Any member of CAAT can go to the convention, and if you get the opportunity, go. It's a great opportunity. You'll learn a lot. You'll see how the whole system works. You'll get a whole new appreciation of your union, OPSEU, as well as CAAT. So I went, and then he kind of made me feel guilty for going to convention and not becoming a steward. Said, okay, I'll become a steward. So I became a steward. Geez, I'm probably been 12, 13 years now. And, my mother always used to say I had an incredibly strong sense of justice. What's right? What's wrong? People treated unfairly, I'd stick up for them. So it was sort of a natural fit. And, even today when I see things that aren't quite right, I tend to speak up and say, well, that's not right. That's not fair. And over the years, I've sort of taken on more of a larger role with the union, representing people who have, facing discipline. And some of it, I just shake my head saying, like, what is this? Like, this is nothing. What are we doing? And the system seems to be becoming more adversarial. I found before there was a lot more talking and we could just sort of work things out. And, some people do need to be reprimanded. But a lot of the times it was just miscommunication or a silly little mistake that didn't warrant anything. I enjoyed it. I've sat in on too many meetings with lawyers and our members. But, by and large, most of them turned out very well.
Okay. What kind of advice would you have? And have you had, because I know you've been twisting arms and getting others to step up, find your replacement. And what kind of things do you share with others that are thinking about, do I really want to do this? I'm a bit fearful of maybe there's going to be some blowback from management. I just don't want to open that door. How do you respond to that?
I just tell people, it's a great opportunity. There's training courses with CAAT and OPSEU. There's conventions. There's opportunities to help your fellow employees. You really get to know your collective agreement, because people ask you questions like, I don't know the answer to that. So you go and you grab the agreement. It makes you more confident in your job as to what you can and can't do. You realize, when management, how do I say this? If they ask you to do something that they're not allowed to ask you, you do have the option to say no. And you can say, no, I don't want to do that. That's your job. I can't do that for whatever reason. There was an old union person in our office, and she used to have a sign on her door that says, "You don't scare me. I'm sticking with the union." I do have experience with labor movements. Like a lot of my uncles were union workers. They were steel workers. And when we were on strike, I used to say, yeah, well, we're not Teamsters here. We're a bunch of academics that walk in the picket line. So we weren't rocking cars and setting things on fire. So, we were very mild-mannered. The only time I was on strike was in 2017. And, Brockville, I was sort of, picket captain. I had the armband and opening the shed and, playing sort of a leadership role at our campus. You learn a lot. You got to meet your colleagues. That's what shocked me the most about being on strike, was how well you got to meet your fellow employees, because you'd be walking the picket line, and every day you'd be walking with somebody else, and you'd learn things about them, what you had in common. As horrible as that 5-week strike was, I wouldn't trade it. I got to really become closer to a lot of my colleagues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you're talking about grievances and things, that's how we really keep that collective agreement that we've fought for, right?
I agree. I look at a grievance and disciplinary hearings, and it's almost like being in court. You don't take things personally. We're fighting for often people's jobs. So, you do what you need to do. It's just like being in a courtroom. Like, lawyers, they don't care about your feelings, and, but that doesn't mean they don't like you. They don't respect you. It's sort of it's an adversarial process while you're doing it, but after it's over, we all have to work together for the common good. And, everything that we've achieved through the union and through striking and through grievances, we've had to fight for. And I just hope future generations continue to fight. We have to think long term. We can't think, I'm not going to get anything out of this. We need strong unions. Management won't give us anything out of the goodness of their heart. Everything we get, we have to fight for, and we have to fight to keep, and we can't let them claw things back. I'm very proud of our union. I think 417 is just incredible. We have a great president, vice president. Gillian Axten is like unbelievable. Christina Chrysler's and Curtis Runyon's, their newsletter, like, people all across the province are reading it. So, it's great. So we have a very strong union and a great group of people. We have a lot of fun together. And I think we do a lot of good work. So shout out to all my homies in the 417.
Woohoo. Power to the people. Any other highlights or things from either your union work? Like, is there something that you did, an investigation perhaps, or a grievance, or helping somebody through something that really stands out for you?
I've had lots of great moments. I've had actually 2 great careers. I had, 24 years in the Mounties, 15 and a half at the college. I've met lots of great people. I have lots of great friends. My wife and I have bought a trailer, and we bought a truck. So our goal is we're going to go across Canada. We're going to go out east, and we're going to go out west. May try to go as far north as we can go. So we've got lots of plans. I am not for 1 minute worried that I am not going to have enough to do in retirement. I am still fairly active. Like kids and grandkids that we visit often. I got one daughter right downtown Toronto, grandkids coming for Christmas. So I am going to stay incredibly busy. And I've actually started saying work is starting to interfere with my social life. So it's time for me to go. I can't fit everything in around working. So
there you go. You got an awful lot of curling to do now.
An awful lot. I think in January, I will be curling 6 times a week.
Wow.
Yeah, I should be better.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And your travels across Canada will be fantastic as well. So
hopefully.
That sounds exciting.
I've always wanted to do that. I think it's from Baie-Comeau to Labrador City and then across Labrador.
Yeah.
That is what I've always wanted to do. So you can actually almost drive to Newfoundland if you take that highway. It's the Trans-Labrador Highway, I think it's called. And I don't know what the one from Baie-Comeau to Labrador City is called. It's not 100% paved, so it could be a bumpy road at parts, but it's more of a logging road. But people do it, so we're going to try to do it next fall.
What a Canadian thing to do.
Yes. In the spring, I'm just going to learn how to drive this truck with a trailer behind and learn how to back up. And I always said the one job I couldn't do was be a truck driver. And, I could drive the truck, but when it came time to back it up, I'd have to just quit there on the spot and just leave it. Say, I'm sorry, I quit. When I first joined the RCMP, we did not have a recognized association. We were probably the only, us and the military police were probably the only police in Canada that didn't have a recognized association. So a couple of fellas that I worked with started up a police association, unrecognized, not authorized, and they were looking for people to join. And we were really blacklisted, chastised by both management and I would say the majority of the membership in the RCMP. But we and our dues were next to nothing. I think it was $100 a year. But it was just to sort of get the ball rolling. And over time, it kept growing and growing and growing. And I would say in the early 2010s, after I had retired, the RCMP finally got a recognized police association. So we used to have what they called division reps, who were sort of they were like union stewards, but they weren't. They really had no pull or role. If we got into trouble, they would help us. But now the RCMP has an association, and everybody joined, everybody signed their association papers. And I would say around 2015, 2016, they got, I think it was about a 24% pay increase, backdated 4 or 5 years. And I didn't benefit from it, and my buddy who started the association didn't benefit from it. But I remember calling him up and saying, "Hey, Mike, all those people who were, giving us a hard time about forming an association, I wonder how many of them turned down that pay raise." So, we do have an important job to do. We have an important role. We keep things fair. We really try to help our members, get through tough times. We try to get what we deserve. We try not to have them claw back anything that we fought hard to get. So, I know I'm proud of the work I did in the union. I'm proud of the work that the whole union did. A lot of great people in 417, and I would encourage anyone at the college to get involved. It's very rewarding. You do get time off to do it, and it would be good to see more programs get involved in the union. I don't want to single any programs out, but some programs, it would be good to see more representatives from different programs.
What a career.
Well, thank you. Yes, I've had a great time.
And now, the 411 on the 417.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the 411 on the 417, your weekly catch-up on union news. Today, I want to talk about Bill 33, the Supporting Children and Students Act 2025. It's been in the news for the last while, but most of these stories focus on ramifications happening in the K-12 education system. This legislation also has an impact for post-secondary, too. Let's break down what's going on and why it matters to all of us. So here's the deal. On November 20th, the provincial government gave Bill 33 the green light. They're calling it a win for students. But if you dig a little deeper, there's a lot for faculty to be concerned about, especially when it comes to academic freedom and how our colleges are run. Our union's been keeping a close eye on this, and there are 3 main areas in this legislation that we should all know. First up is admissions criteria. So, Bill 33 says colleges have to admit students based on merit. Sounds fair, right? But here's the twist. The cabinet, so government, gets to decide what merit actually means. They can set the rules for what colleges can and can't look at when admitting students. So why should we care? Well, this can mean the government has a say in who gets into our classrooms. There's a real risk that the holistic admissions process that we use, especially, where we are supporting marginalized students, can get tossed out. So we really need to keep an eye on it so that our commitment to diversity and accessible education doesn't get lost. Next up is a section on research security plans. So Bill 33 says that all publicly assisted colleges have to come up with research security plans. Okay, on the surface, it's about keeping research safe, things that we do through our ethical practices in research. But the minister now has the power to tell us exactly what needs to go into those plans, what topics we have to cover, and when it all needs to happen. So the worry with all of this? This can open the door to political interference. The minister could limit international collaboration or restrict research on topics they don't like. Plus, these directives don't have to go through the usual checks and balances, so there's less transparency. The third big issue that we have is that Bill 33 also gives the government a lot more control over what fees colleges can charge students, so they can decide what fees are allowed, what's not, and how we have to share that information. So why does this matter? If government tightens the rules too much, it can mean less money for important student services, things like counseling, tutoring, and athletics. These are the things that help our students succeed, and they're often run by support staff. So let's zoom out for a second. What's the bigger picture? It's not just colleges and universities. Bill 33 changes the rules for K-12 schools. The minister can take control of school boards if they don't follow directives, or even if the minister just thinks they've done something wrong. It's a pretty aggressive move, and it shows the government's willing to step in and override local governance. We need to stand with our K-12 colleagues because what happens in one sector often spreads to others. So what's next? Bill 33 is now law, but the real impact depends on the regulations that Cabinet writes in the next few months. So here's what we all need to be aware of. We need to keep tabs on any new rules about merit-based admissions to protect equity pathways. We need to push for consultation on any minister directives about research security. And we need to stand up for academic freedom and the integrity of our colleges. Stay tuned for more updates. We need to stand in solidarity to protect our collective rights.
And now, another fun episode of Is It a Gripe or a Grievance?
Hey, Gillian. I've been teaching at the college full-time for 6 years. I just applied for professional development leave so I can complete a course, but the college denied my request without giving a reason. Can they do that?
No, they cannot. They have to give you a reason. They can deny, but they cannot be unduly withheld, is what the collective agreement says, which means they have to tell you why and has to be rational. They can't just say, well, because we need you to teach COM 110. No offense to the COM 110 teachers, but there's a lot of them, and you're not special in that. But if you teach something really, really specific in one really, really important semester, and the world will fall if you don't teach it, maybe. But they would really have to give you a rationale of why you can't do your professional development. And then they need to give you a plan of how you're going to be able to get that done. There are a lot of us with professional diplomas that if we don't get our professional development, we will actually be turfed from the professional association we're in. And so that can become really critical if we don't get our PD. So a discussion without a doubt, and no, they can't just summarily say, no, you can't do it. They have to tell you why.
That's all we have for this week's episode. For those of you celebrating over the winter break, happy holidays. For those celebrating Festivus, be gentle on the head of your household with those feats of strength. But to everyone, enjoy a well-deserved break. Cat Tales will be back on January 8th with our next episode. Don't forget to click the subscribe button on Spotify or Apple Podcasts so that you don't miss an episode. Be safe, everyone. We'll see you in 2026.
You've been listening to Cat Tales, stories that matter to faculty and beyond. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Visit slcfaculty.ca and stay connected with us on social media.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the speakers and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policies, positions, or statements of OPSEU, SEFPO, St. Lawrence College, or any affiliated organizations. This podcast is provided for informational and educational purposes only. While every effort is made to ensure accuracy, SLC Faculty Local 417 makes no representations or warranties of any kind, express or implied, about the completeness, reliability, or suitability of the information shared. Any reliance placed on such information is strictly at the listener's own risk. Music and sound effects used in this podcast are licensed or royalty-free. We respect copyright law and encourage our listeners to do the same.